Today we're going to look at 3, 5. We're going to perform basic matrix operations. So sometimes this appears on the ACT test. We're going to make sure that you understand how to get these right because it's not really that hard. So this will give you a few extra points on the ACT test. Alright, so let's add two matrices. So 3, -5, 0, -1, plus -1, 2, and then 4, 0. So matrix is just kind of a set of numbers here, arranged in such a manner that it has 2 rows in this case, and 2 columns. You can only add matrices and subtract matrices that have the same dimensions. So you can see these are both 2 by 2 matrices. So we're going to add the same number in the same place. So I'm going to add the 3 and the -1 because they're both in the same place. And that's going to make 2. I'm going to add the 0 and the 4 because they're both in the same place in the 2 matrices. Then we're going to add the -5 and the 2 because they're in the same place. And then we're going to add the -1 and the 0 to get -1, and that's how you add 2 matrices. Alright, let's look at subtract. So let's do 7, 0, -1, 4, -2, 6, minus -2, 3, -3, 5, -10, 1. So again, we have to make sure that they're of the same dimensions, and these 2 matrices are of the same dimensions. So this one has 3 rows, the second one has 3 rows, the first one has 2 columns, and the second one has 2 columns. So these are both 3 by 2 matrices. So we're going to add them up. So I'm going to take the 7 and add, oops, sorry, I've got to distribute the negative first. So we got to take this, and now we're going to change every single sign in the second matrix. So whatever was positive becomes negative, and whatever was negative becomes positive. And now do what we were just getting ready to do. So add the 7 and the 2 together to get 9. Add the 4 and the -4 to get, or -5 together to get -1. Add the 0 and the -3. Add the -2 and the +10. Add the -1 and the 3. And then finally, add the 6 and the -1 to get this same dimension matrix. So this is still a 3 by 2 matrix. In this next example, we're going to multiply a matrix by a scalar. A scalar is just a number, a plain number in matrix world. So for instance, if I take the scalar number -2 times the matrix 4, 1, 2, -1, 0, 7. So this guy here is a scalar. So you can see he's called a scalar because he's not in a matrix. So all we do is basically distribute him to every single one of the numbers. So the 4 is going to become a -8. The -1 is going to become a +2. The 1 is going to turn into a -2. 0 stays a 0. 2 turns into a -4. And 7 turns into a -14. So we just took every single number by -2. And then let's look at one more of these scalar multiplication problems. So let's do 4 times the matrix, -2, -6, 5, 0, plus the matrix, -3, 8, 6, -5. So in this one, we're going to multiply this first matrix all by 4. but not the second matrix, because it just implies that 4 is only times the first matrix. If it was in parentheses, if both matrices were in parentheses and the 4 was outside, then we would multiply everybody. So this is going to be -8, +24, 20, and still 0. And this matrix doesn't change because he doesn't have a scalar out front of him. And then we make sure that we can add them together. They're both 2 by 2 matrices, so that works. And we end up with -11, 24, and 8 is 32, 26, and -5. The last type of problems we're going to look at is solving. So we're going to solve a matrix equation. These are pretty easy. The only thing is that you have to pull the equation out of the matrix. So let's look at an example. Let's look at -2x, and then a 6, and the second row is 1, -8 in matrices, plus the scalar number 2 times the matrix 5, -1, -7, 6 equals the matrix -9, 4, and then the bottom row is -13, y. So all we want to do is solve for the variables. So we just look for the 2 places where there's a variable. There's a variable here, so we'll take care of him first. So he's the first number in the matrix. So we're going to make the equation out of these numbers. So this is going to be -2x plus 2 times 5 equals -9. And then we just simplify. -10 from both sides. Divide by -2. And x is equal to 19/2. And then for the y, he's right here. So notice where his position is in the matrix. He's the bottom right-hand corner. So we're going to look at all those numbers. And that's what we make our equation out of. So we have -8 plus 2 times 6 equals y. So -8 plus 12 equals y. So 4 equals y. And that's all we have to do, and those are our 2 answers. Really not too bad, right? So we'll work some more on those tomorrow in class to make sure that we know what's going on. Make sure that hopefully you took notes. If not, rewatch the video and write your notes down. And then tomorrow we'll do check your notes and we'll do more practice problems.